Very warm welcoming. I'm Her Royal Highness Princess Abze Djigma. I'm leading the conversation on the way to COPs, and this time is on the way to COP26, Glasgow, UK. So I will be joined in that conversation by the Deputy Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework on Convention on Climate Change, Ovais Sarmad. Most welcome, Ovais. And joining us from the UK, Juliet Davenport, the CEO of GOODENERGY. And also in our studio, two twins, lovely, passionate. I will be very happy to hear from them. Lovely to have you, Renske and Lonneke. So enjoy the conversation and thank you for sharing your screen with us. Lovely to be here with you and to have the decision makers at the United Nations level who are talking about climate, which is UNFCCC. But Ovais will explain you what it is about the climate, Paris Agreement, that he has been working on it for a while. And we're also joining us from the UK, Juliet Davenport, a bright mentor for women, for youth. So that will be interesting to have Ovais' point of view on this one.
And we are the UN agency responsible for addressing the climate change at the global level, to bring all the governments together to take key decisions to start with, and then facilitate them in the implementation of those decisions. One of the main recent decisions was, as many of you would know, and here it is, the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is one of the cornerstones of our work, because we are now in the process of implementing that Paris Agreement. For our today's conversation, I would like to focus on one part of the Paris Agreement, which is Article 12.
Yes.
And I'll read it out. Parties, when they say parties, it means the governments shall cooperate in taking measures as appropriate to enhance climate change, education, training,
yes,
public awareness, public participation, and public access to information, recognizing the importance of those steps with respect to enhancing action under this agreement. And this is what we are actually doing, as Princess Djigma just said, walking the talk. So bringing the public and enhancing public awareness about the urgency of taking action.
About what Ovais just said, what does it mean?
It means that he pretty much just brings countries together, and that he tries to not just make a country talk to itself in a certain way. He tries to make it a joint group, like a group conversation.
If I can. So then one of the central goal of the Paris Agreement is that we as countries need to take actions in our national capacities and together with other countries to limit the greenhouse gas emissions and maintain the global warming below 2 degrees Celsius by the end of the century, preferably 1.5 degrees. Then I need to look at where my energy sources come from and what they're doing to the global greenhouse gas emissions, and how I can reduce those, eliminate those, and move to greener ways of living, consuming, and just in general existence.
As a country, you have various things you can do as a country to be able to put a framework in place to enable carbon emission reduction. And I think one of the things for the UK is it's in a particular special situation because it does have to show leadership. Building up to COP26, obviously, we have to make sure that we can come to the table with our hand in our heart and say we are doing everything we can about climate change.
Absolutely.
Now, what's interesting is actually the UK has just made a couple of announcements. So we've agreed a recent announcement that we're going to reduce by 78% our carbon emissions by 2035, which will become legally binding.
For our audience, since we want to use simple words, legally binding means that you are obliged to do so, that we're pushing you. We have to. It's a have to. Like a mama tell you, clean your room.
Legally binding.
Legally binding. So that means legally binding. What India did well a couple of years ago, I did remember that, making a huge program of changing all the lamps into LEDs. That's helped the world. That's everybody enjoying LED lamps that cheap because India has a policy legally binded. Now you know what that means, legally binded. And that's push. Absolutely.
I strongly believe personally that the change we want to see is a very fundamental and societal change. And that can happen. One very important way of doing that is through education, learning, and communicating.
Yeah.
So education is key, is absolutely critical and important, because we can do all the energy transformation, which is absolutely essential and necessary. But as Juliet was saying, how do we bring about that thought process into our day-to-day existence? And that, I think, can only be done effectively through education, right from the early stage, from the kindergarten and onwards. So bring in climate change education.
Reneke, at school, do you learn about it's part of your curricula? Did you talk about it?
Yeah, I remember this year actually in geography. I have a very good geography teacher, and she actually made us watch a 1.5 hour documentary about climate change and gave us a quiz about it. None of us liked it because it was a quiz, but we did have to do it. So that way she made it, and theoretically she made it legally binding for us. So we had to. And I remember I just had a test in physics about things such as isolating our homes and such, and how many power we lose, and that was a really big thing as well.
Yeah.
And I remember vaguely talking about it in biology last year, but that could just have been a conversation we just had with the teacher in class because we didn't have anything else to do. But it is certainly already a part of our education, and it's really, every teacher does it differently. So I have a very good geography teacher that really zooms in on it and is really involved, and other geography teachers, for example, aren't, and other biology teachers aren't, and some people just brush over it.
And how can we teach the teachers then? How do we teach the teachers?
By putting it into the books. I think that it should just be part of educational books, just giving an entire chapter to how does my subject how does that affect climate change, and how do we convey that to our students in an understanding way, in a way that they finally understand what's actually going on, because there's this big gray mess that stands in front of you that it's climate change, and there are so many aspects, and you try and pick up on something, but it's so big. You're watching at the Mount Everest, and there's so much information, and there's so much everything, and there's so much misinformation, and somebody just hands you a shovel and says, dig. And you're just like, but how? I don't know. This is the Mount Everest. How am I, as a person, going to make a difference? Because you don't see other people digging. So you're just like, I have a shovel here, but how am I supposed to dig?
Yeah. Fully agree. And Juliet, you're right. And COP26 actually does have a very strong component on education and action for climate empowerment.
Yes.
And in fact, the COP26 this year is jointly organized by UK and Italy. And Italy has actually taken on that other part on action for climate empowerment, engagement with youth, and through that also bringing in education. But you're absolutely right in that there is a lot more needs to be done in that area to bring about the education and advocacy. But we're already seeing a lot of it and the different movements, but that needs to be then brought into the legislative parts of the various governments.
In terms of action, implementation, the job creation path, entrepreneurship, how can we flow in with the CSR in companies? I'm confident you have one in your company. How can we bring new youth, your next employees there?
I agree.
Because as we go, our kids are more and more climate sensitive. How are you going to attract the best brand, who also the best brand and who would like to work for you, or because of the ethics? How about ethics in companies? For instance, on fashion industry or car industry, how are they going to do that? What are your plans?
We have one and a couple of initiatives. One is the Momentum for Change. Look it up, and this is where we invite anyone around the world to come up with innovative and creative solutions. Companies who have already done it or are at the cusp of inventing something. So those are then evaluated, and then we provide a fantastic platform for those companies. And they're about, then after review of all the submissions, about 10 or so companies or initiatives and ideas are picked up and provided a platform at the world global stage.
It's important that we can create also the snowball effect. If you see your neighbor who's placing peewees in his roof, then you will go and start talking about him. How did you do it? And how, for instance, Juliet, we can have that snowball effect and have a kind of magnet to move the wheel of the implementation of climate actions and bring it really sky high.
When I think about climate action, I think you need government to make sure that you've got the framework on lots of different levels. So whether that's making sure they're investing in R&D and innovation, making sure they've got the infrastructure to be able to deliver, looking at their legislation and the legally binding bits. Then
R&D
making sure that
means research and development.
Oh yeah, research and development. Sorry. Those are new technologies. Those are kind of be the solar panels of tomorrow or the EV cars of tomorrow. So it's kind of you need to make sure you're doing that today, because we're going to need that in 5-10 years time. And then you need to make sure that people who are buying things understand, so they're empowered with information.
I would like to ask the young participants who, the twin young ladies, tell us, what would you want us to do this year immediately that would help you take sort of local action in your school, in your community, with your family and friends?
I think watching your power and where it comes from, especially. Because there are a lot of different, companies who provide power, and trying to find out which is the best.
The greener ones?
The greener ones, and powering your own house with green energy.
Then you mean you're going to speak to your parents then too, because they are paying the bill.
Yes, that's a problem. That is the problem.
The bill. That's what are the single thing that you can do? And say, well, that also can inspire that other youth, because I will commit at the end of that conversation. You've got to commit, Ovais, and also Juliet. What are you going to do? Well, and that others will do as well.
I know one thing.
To copy you.
I know one thing about, if anything, I know one thing about youth, and it is that we don't want to be weird. So if you want to stimulate the youth by doing something, you need to find those people in the crowd who are trendsetters and make them do it, because we don't want to. For example, our older sisters, when they were in high school, it was a no-go to take a lunchbox. It had to be in plastic bags. Otherwise, you were odd, you were weird, you stood out. So everybody took plastic bags because they didn't want to be weird. You don't want to come to school with a lunchbox. That's odd. So when we went to high school, we thought, we need plastic bags because that's how you take your lunch to school. And now all the kids take, in my school, almost everyone takes a lunchbox because that's just how it developed. And now I take a lunchbox because I don't want to be weird, because I want to fit in. So right now I'm doing something good for the environment, but I'm not thinking about the environment. I just want to fit in. So if you want everyone to take a flask to not create plastic waste, then you should make sure that there are those people in the crowd that stand out and are trendsetters, that they are doing it.
Yeah, and in the fashion industry, you need to make the fashion that is, made green, like good for the environment.
The fashion will last. Let me tell you, that jacket that I have, of course I was like that, but it was meant from the beginning so that I can grow with it. You just make it a little bit big here, a little bit big here. Yeah!
That kind of things. We need to stimulate the people in the crowd.
We call it reserve.
Yes. We need to find those people who are trendsetters.
You tailor-made it with reserve.
Yeah, we need to find those trendsetters and let them wear the clothing that you can wear for longer, and don't for longer periods of time, and don't make that weird, because it's weird to come with a set of clothes that you wore years ago. That's unacceptable. Okay. We need to find a way to make that acceptable, and find those people who have the power, the social power to stimulate. I always say
old fashion is fashion, and that make my kids laugh about it. Yeah, I say old fashion is fashion.
True.
So you always have the way. It's a matter of creativity. We need to. What I hear you is that we need to be creative, that we can set the tone, and be the leaders, no matter our age, where we sit, but inspire. But you need to get starting it. In a few years, you will be voters.
Yes.
You will be voters. And legally binding, it means that when the politicians that come with their programs, you can ask them, what do you have? How are you greening your program?
Yeah,
because you're borrowing us something, because it's you're borrowing on behalf of me, on behalf of my future.
Yes.
So I would like to know, and it's important to sit around the table, and I encourage you and our listeners as well to get involved, because it's only with the policies that we can force the change. And we need to go and start in your community, with your municipality. You can get involved, even at your age, you can get involved with your municipality in Breda. For instance, when you got home, you can ask to your mom, how can I get involved in the city hall, and to see that's how it starts. Don't underestimate. Whatever everybody does, it is important.
I often use as well that we have not inherited this environment, the natural resources from the previous generations. We, in fact, have borrowed it from future generations. And that future generation, those two young ladies who are sitting there, they need to remind the policymakers, the politicians, and the leaders in the community, to remind them that it's their obligation to protect that and hand over a safe, green, sustainable environment to those future generations, to you, really.
What you tend to find with particularly political leaders is political leaders are followers. I know it sounds, I may be a little bit on the edge here, but they tend to follow what the population want them to do. And so we do need to stand up and tell them what we want them to do, because otherwise they won't do it. And so you whether you write to somebody, whether you post something on social media, whether you celebrate something, you guys can have much more power than you probably realize. And also hold your parents to account. And they're going to hate me for that. They can vote. And they can make different decisions today. And I think kid power is amazing, what it can do. It's extraordinary.
2 days ago was the first time we heard about this interview.
Yes.
So that was a real quick change. But I remember being like, oh, we're going to talk about like climate change and stuff. And then you started to talk about, well, I heard like, oh, they're going to be UN things. I was like, whoa, that went real far. Wait, what? Like for us as teenagers, there is such a huge distance to the climate agreements in Paris. We tend to dehumanize things, so we tend to make things an object to look up to. So I get to meet you, and it's almost unreal for me. The fact that you physically were there is astounding to me.
Yeah, we'll be standing in, like, we'll be eating our lunch, and then we get this ping on our phone, like, the Paris Agreement has been signed. We're like, oh, that's so good, that's going to be amazing, that must have been so cool for all those people who were there. And then you see all these things, you're like, oh, that's so awesome, so big.
We tend to, like, look at things from a distance and think, that is awesome, and we tend to the fact that I'm watching you on a screen is unreal for me, that I'm actually talking to you, because I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined that I got to even see someone who was present at that signing and who has influence there. And the fact I'm talking to you and I'm giving an opinion to me is that you're going to maybe someday do something with it. It's almost the fact we are so unaware of how much of an influence we can be.
Yeah, we need to bring it.
Yeah.
You need to humanize you people. Just say, like, the president of the UN is just also a person who can make mistakes and he can fault. So if you see that fault, you're gonna have to speak up, because people make mistakes.
We never think about, but I can have an influence. We always think those people over there. And I know that a lot of people in my class and a lot of friends are like, the people over there, they are they just focused on money and things, like they're politicians. They don't care about the public opinion. They just care about power. And the fact that all of you are just here is proving them wrong. And we have to get through to those people who think that governments and politicians are just focused on, I want to make money and I want to do this. We should show that they are people who have opinions, who have lives, who grew up somewhere.
Absolutely.
Who have more in their minds than just, I want to make the most money in my life. Who actually have morals and actually want to do things. So maybe we shouldn't prepare speeches and just throw someone on the stage and say, who are you? Hello, maybe you should introduce yourself. Let's have a show, like a normal circle like we used to have in kindergarten. What did you do this weekend?
So before we close that session, so what is your commitment?
When I'm going to vote, probably already now, I'm going to try and find those political parties who do further interest themselves in climate change and what do I do and is it actually going to be effective? And I'm going to try and convince my friends in a way that's not, the way it's usually presented, like, go and do this because it's important. More like, go and do this because it's fun. It's fun to do this.
Fun. It's about fun.
I think I'm really trying to find a way of just with a simple things I don't completely have to commit to and change my life completely. Like just read an article, stuff. I'm going to try and convince my friends to do that as well, or just in the breaks trying to convince them that it's good that they're bringing this, or that maybe that church, they also can find that there, Those little things. I think I'm trying to interest myself in those things and convince people around me so they can convince their friends and their sisters who convince their friends.
We are here for the snowball effect. How about you, Renneke?
I'm about to do the same thing, I think. Twinning here.
Serious?
Seriously, yes.
Wow.
Yes, we're twinning.
Wouldn't have expected that.
I'm thinking definitely this talk show is going to definitely help, because suddenly my friends are like, oh my God, are you on camera? That's so awesome. And like everybody's like always like, climate change is such a big thing, we need to involve the youth, and then suddenly someone like me, a normal kid in class, is suddenly talking to all of you guys. Like, who would have ever thought I would have ever seen your like spoke to you? I'm going home, and tomorrow I have class physically. I'm going to meet my friends face to face, and I'm going to tell them all about this interview, and they're going to be
not yet,
not all about, but like that I had an interview, and they're going to be super impressed, and they're going to be so hyped up about it because a friend of theirs got to speak to people who were a part of the Paris Agreement. Everybody knows that. And the fact that I'm doing that is enough for them to look at their lives and be like, wow, I have someone so close to me that I share my secrets with that's so close to me and she's doing this, then maybe I should change a little bit to like fit her.
What I want you also is to take experience from your grandparents, from your neighbors, to move along from it. That is the most important. Everything is important. You saw a paper on the street, just pick it up. And always, if somebody else don't do the right thing, explain gently. My grandmother used to tell to me, everybody is always scared when you ask things politely.
Yes.
And then you can reach your point, you know. And here we are a group of friends who like our planet. It will be also on the social media of the United Nations, UNFCCC, and their YouTube channel. So, and thank you, my sister Juliet. You're so amazing.
Thank you so much.
And our technical team as well, who make it perfect for us, make it cozy. Thank you so much. And I look forward to the next, to meeting all of you in Glasgow COP26 UK. And stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you for watching.
Thank you very much. Stay safe, please.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you again. Thank you.